He came over the top of a big hill.
You can't catch us!
Laughed the troublesome trucks.
Whee!
But there was trouble ahead. Duck had stopped at the crossing at the bottom of the hill. Arthur's driver applied the brakes, but it was too late. Squashed fruit flew everywhere. Arthur was upset. His spotless record was ruined.
"Oh dear," replied Tom Tipper. "This is going to make me later still." He was in a hurry and being careless. He propped his bike against Percy's mail truck and rushed away. "Stop!" cried Percy, but Tom was out of sight. There was worse to come. Percy's driver hadn't seen the bike and he started away. "Oh no!" cried Percy. "Now there'll be trouble." And there was. Percy's driver quickly stopped the train. Everyone came running to the scene. Tom Tipper's bicycle was in pieces.
That evening, a big storm raged across the island. Cranky and the engines were trapped at the docks. "We're sure to be safe in this shed," said Duck. But he was wrong. The engines had no idea they were about to be put in great danger by an old tramp steamer. It was out of control and running aground, straight into the sheds. Ah! "Help!" called the engines from inside the shed. "I can't!" called Cranky.
The branch line couldn't take his weight and the rails buckled. "Oh, help!" Gordon cried as he slid off the tracks and into a field. No one was hurt, but poor Gordon felt very undignified. "What will the Fat Controller say?" he groaned. He found out.
Peter Sam felt much better after his long drink, but the freight cars were bored. "Let's break away." Their loads were heavy and the couplings old. One snapped. "Faster, faster!" shouted the freight cars. A sign read "Slow steep bends and ravine ahead," but the silly cars never saw it. Then it was too late. Peter Sam arrived at the scene of the disaster. His driver sighed. "This was our fault. We didn't secure them properly. We'll have to get help to pull them out. Sir Topham Hatt will be very annoyed."
But Duck, look out! Duck, stop!
The foreman shouted, "Oliver, move this rock!" "I'll do it," cried Jack. Jack scooped a bucket full of rock. "Stop!" shouted his banksman. But he didn't stop. He was too eager to help. "No!" shouted Isabella. But it was too late. "Oh no!" he cried. Oops, Jack spotted.
Cinders and ashes, cried Thomas. Neville's heading for the broken bridge. I must stop him. Neville was speeding through the countryside as fast as he could. Suddenly, Neville saw a barrier on the track. He slammed on his brakes. But it was too late. Neville was in terrible trouble. He was on the broken end of the bridge. Thomas knew it was all his fault.
The man on duty at the crossing rushed to warn traffic with his red flag, but was too late to switch Percy to the runaway siding. Frantically trying to grip the rails, Percy slid into the yard. Beep! Beep! Look out! The brake van was in smithereens. Percy's driver and fireman had jumped clear, but Percy was stranded.
Then there was trouble. Percy shoved, Mavis shunted, and Thomas shouted.
1, 2, 3, push!
The coal trucks bashed and biffed together. They jutted and jumped. Coal dust scattered and splattered everywhere. It covered the railway inspector and the fat controller. Then it flew down Gordon's funnel. Gordon spluttered and stuttered.
Oh, the indignity!
The fat... The roads. "Be careful," said his driver. "Tar is sticky stuff." But Percy wasn't being careful. He was going too fast. Percy charged down Gordon's hill. He didn't see Gordon and the express until it was too late. The brake van passed Gordon, but the tar wagons didn't. Luckily, no one was hurt, but Gordon was very cross. "Now look what you've done," he wheezed. "What will the fat controller say?" Percy thought he knew. "Oh no," he cried. "I'm sure to be scrapped now." And so Percy decided to run away.
Hello!
Not again. Oh.
James was so frightened that he missed the red signal, hit the points, came off the rail, and ended up in a pond.
Are you all right? I didn't mean to give you a fright.
Oh, James. I see you've met Gator.
La nieve voló sobre el rostro de Gordon.
¡Calderas hirvientes! ¡No veo nada!
Gordon se desvió de la vía principal y entró en una lateral, directo hacia unos vagones de grava. Gordon quedó cubierto de una gruesa capa de polvo gris.
¡Ay, qué tragedia! Al menos puedo ver ahora.
But still Thomas huffed and chuffed as hard as he could. Then there was trouble. Just as he got to the top of the hill, the coupling came loose, and Skarloey rolled backwards. "Help!" cried Skarloey, but it was too late. Skarloey's flatbed biffed into the sidings and came off the track. "Oh no," moaned Thomas. "The thing controller told me to go straight to the mender's yard, but I wanted to give you a big day out. Now look what's happened." Thomas was very unhappy. His driver applied the brakes, but they were useless against the surging trucks. "On, on, on!" yelled the trucks. Oliver fought hard, but still they forced him on and on. At last the trucks grew tired. "I'm winning," gasped Oliver. But it was too late. Oliver lay, bruised and bemused, bunkered down in the turntable well. Duck surveyed the damage. "Hello, Oliver. Are you being a good, gracious engine? Beg pardon, of course, but we really don't like this sort of surprise. Donald and Douglas will miss their turntable until it is mended." That evening, puffed back onto Edward's line. "It worked," laughed James. "I'm first." Suddenly the signal turned red. James applied his brakes and screeched to a halt. But Edward couldn't stop in time. "Sorry," puffed Edward. "I didn't have time to stop." "Don't worry," moaned James. "It was my fault for pushing in." "You're finally in a poster," chuckled Thomas. "Maybe you are good enough after all." But James didn't feel very good. He felt very...
¡Fuera de mi camino, locomotora inútil! ¡Eres demasiado lento para ser realmente un... ¡Oh, Stephen! ¡Tú! ¡Me salvaste! Y a mis pasajeros, yo...
Te está dando las gracias, Stephen.
More careless. "I'll show that smelly diesel and those lazy steamers," he said to his driver. "Careful," cautioned his driver. "You're asking for trouble." And he got it. Duncan didn't notice his chain was tangled in the coupling of the truck in front of him. Suddenly, he was being pulled up the track by the empty trucks. "Boots and buffers!" he cried. "It's got me!" Duncan's driver jumped clear. Rusty returned to see Duncan being pulled up the incline. "I tried to warn him," said Rusty. "He never listens," the little diesel's driver said. The chain pulling Duncan's trucks couldn't hold the weight. It suddenly snapped. "Help!" he yelled. "Glug, glug, glug," he said. "Bluggle my broiler." Duncan felt foolish and very wet.
was in a hurry. He didn't see that the switch had failed and that he had been diverted into a siding. "Look out, Percy!" shouted his driver and applied the brakes, but it was too late. The driver and fireman had jumped clear, but squashed fruit squirted all over Percy.
Then there was trouble. Harry and Bert were enjoying a rest at the engine sheds, but Thomas and Diesel couldn't see them. They raced backwards towards Harry and Bert. With a crash and a bash, Thomas and Diesel smashed Harry and Bert right through the back of the engine sheds. Stones and timber flew everywhere. Bust my buffers! Oh no! I'm the most important, snapped Max. I am, blasted Monty. I am. I am. Look out, shouted Patrick. Oh, flatten my fenders, shouted Monty. Not my fault, called Max. My beautiful concrete, moaned Patrick. My beautiful blue paint, moaned Thomas.
Thomas thought he was being clever. Really, he was only moving because a careless cleaner had meddled with his controls. He soon found his mistake. He tried to whee, but he couldn't. He tried to stop, but he couldn't. He just kept rolling along. He didn't dare look at what was coming next. There was the station master's house. The station master was about to have breakfast. "Horrors!" cried Thomas, and shut his eyes. The house rocked. Broken glass tinkled. Plaster was everywhere. Thomas had collected a bush on his travels. He peered into the room through its leaves. He couldn't speak. The station master was furious. His wife picked up her plate. "You miserable engine," she scolded. "Just look what you've done to our breakfast. Now I shall have to cook some more." She banged the door. More plaster fell. This time it fell on Thomas. Thomas felt depressed. Workmen propped up.
Later, Gordon steamed snootily into the diesel works.
Engine parts coming through.
Gordon was far too busy being snooty to see the truck on the tracks in front of him. Gordon hit the truck with a smash and a bash. With a clang and a clatter, Gordon's buffer crashed onto the tracks.
Bust my buffers!
Den and Dart were surprised.
I don't think that was meant to happen.
What he means is, you need fixing.
We'll fix you.
Gordon was surprised.
Diesels can't fix a steamy. That's impossible. Only steamies fix steamies. I must puff away. My pistons still pump, and my wheels still whir. Goodbye.
And Gordon steamed away without a buffer. But outside...
A mysterious figure watched Henry go by. Ahead was a landslide blocking the line. Henry braked hard, but the freight cars hit some of the rubble and plunged into the ravine. Just then,
Thomas puffed as fast as he could, but he wasn't watching where he was going. Thomas didn't notice that the points had been changed. Thomas puffed into the sidings and biffed into the buffers. Sticky toffee splattered everywhere. "Oh no," moaned Thomas. "I can't give the children train rides when I'm this messy." Then there was trouble. Gordon was roaring towards Percy.
Out of my way! Express coming through!
Out of my way! Mail coming through!
But Gordon didn't get out of Percy's way. Suddenly, Percy was worried.
Oh my! Oh no! Oh help! Whoa! Oh!
Whoa!
Gordon swerved and swayed into a siding. He bashed the buffers and toppled off the tracks. Percy felt terrible. Now... Suddenly, Thomas saw Harry rumbling towards him. Thomas backed away as fast as he could. But he didn't see Bert pulling up behind him. Thomas bumped into Bert, the stinky cheese shot into the air and splattered down all over Thomas, Bert and Harry. "Now we're really stinky," moaned Harry. "The most stinkiest engines ever," groaned Bert. Harry and Bert rushed straight to the washdown. Thomas wanted to go to the washdown too, but Thomas's cheese was all over the track. Thomas was ready to go, but the shunters hadn't released the brakes on the trucks. Thomas pulled as hard as he could, but the trucks wouldn't move. "I have to hurry," puffed Thomas. He heaved, he huffed, and he puffed, and at last the coupling broke. Thomas shot forward, cocoa powder flew everywhere. "Now I'll never get to take the children," puffed Thomas.
The rails were slippery. He couldn't stop in time. Donald wasn't hurt, but Sir Topham Hatt was most annoyed. "I am disappointed, Donald. I didn't expect such clumsiness from you. I had decided to send Douglas back and keep you." "I'm sorry, sir," said Donald. "I should think so, too. You have upset my arrangements. Now, James will have to help with the goods work while you have your tender mended. James won't like that." Sir Topham Hatt was right.
Proudly. Later, Ned was moving under the bridge. His banksman had told him to lower his crane arm. "I must be careful, I must be careful, I must be careful." Then there was trouble. Ned hadn't lowered his crane arm far enough. It knocked loose the important keystones. The bridge started to crumble. Thomas puffed towards the bridge, unaware of the danger ahead. "Thomas!" Jack jumped in and lifted his front loader up against the bridge. He pushed with all his might. Thomas saw the flagman. His driver applied the brakes, but it was too late. "Cinders and ashes!" cried Thomas. Jack didn't let go. Finally, Thomas's driver backed Thomas to safety. "Hold on, Jack!" called Kelly, and he rushed to help. Jack couldn't hold the bridge any longer. "Are you all right?" Jack? I think so. Ha! Laughed Thomas. I can get these trucks really messy and get the coal to the docks on time. Then there was trouble. The rusty coupling broke. Thomas's trucks were rolling by themselves. Cinders and ashes, cried Thomas. Thomas applied his brakes, but he stopped too quickly. The trucks bumped into the back of Thomas, and the coal spilled all over the tracks. Thomas was stuck. He puffed nervously. The difficult bend came nearer and nearer. Thomas was supposed to slow down, but he wanted to get past the bend quickly. So Thomas went faster and faster. The carriages rattled and shook. Soon be over, Thomas said to himself. And it soon was. Luckily, no one was hurt. But Thomas felt sadder than ever.
Without a back engine to push from behind, it was very hard to pull the heavy cars up the hill.
Oh! You said you were going to be good!
Sorry, Thomas. You forgot. We won't hold you back anymore.
What? No!
Without a back engine to hold back from behind, it was very hard to slow down. And Thomas's brake van wasn't strong enough to stop the heavy cars.
Oh no! Toby, look out!
Luckily, a signalman switched him onto a siding.
Thomas, what happened?
You two were taking so long. I decided not to wait and take the troublesome trucks by myself.
Without a back engine?
Not a good idea. I know.
Sorry, Thomas. I did tell Mavis a number of times that we should get back to the quarry.
What? You never said... Oh!
Never listen to me. You always do what you want. Nay, true. You never listen to me. You always do what you want. Nay, true. It is. No, it isn't. Yes, it is.
And then there was trouble.
Oh, no!
You do? Donnie, are we still moving? Or is it... Oh, no! The train!
Oh no! Oh no! Oh
My fault. Yes, it was. It wasn't. It was. It wasn't. It was. It wasn't. It was.
For goodness sakes, you two! I was trying to help you out! If you would just stop arguing for 1 minute, you'd see it's me that needs some help now.
Next day, the twins were working at the quarry again. That's a strange noise, gasped Bill. I've never heard a noise like that before. I have, whispered his driver nervously. It sounds like a rock slide to me. Then came the alarm. Danger! Clear the quarry! Shouted the quarry master. Workmen scrambled into the cars. Thank goodness we're here, said the twins. They were just puffing out of the quarry when, help! Wait for me! A workman had been left behind. Ben waited as the man climbed quickly aboard. The twins left the quarry just in time. Everyone was safe, but rubble lay all around. Oh dear, said Bill. This wasn't our fault. I hope Sir Topham Hatt will understand. And indeed, he did.
But Oliver knew what to do. There was plenty of sand on the rails and his wheels gripped splendidly. He gave a great heave. Oh! Groaned Scruffy. I don't like this. Go it! Yelled Duck. Well done, boy. Well done. Oh! Wailed Scruffy. Oh! I'm coming apart! And he did.
Harvey went faster and faster as he hurried down the slope with the heavy train pushing him forward.
Pulling a heavy train downhill is much easier than I thought.
But when Harvey reached the next bend, he suddenly realized that he was going much too fast to be safe. Luckily, nobody was hurt.
And jumped, the books jiggled and joggled. Then Thomas hit the biggest bump of all.
Whoa! Cinders and ashes!
The trucks bounced high in the air. They crashed and bashed. They clattered and shattered down to the tracks. Thomas put on his brakes. The books flew high and wide through the air and landed all over Farmer McColl's field.
Thomas grew more and more excited. Too excited for his own good. I'm glad I'm a splendid engine, he puffed. The Fat Controller thinks I'm really useful. I had a race with Bertie once. I whooshed through the tunnel and stopped an inch from the buffers. Then, Thomas made his mistake. Just like this, he boasted. No one was hurt, but Thomas's front was badly bent. They telephoned to the Fat Controller.
I'll send up the workmen, he said. But if they can't mend Thomas in time, we'll have to go to the big city without him.
Poor Thomas.
Oh, glory, look at that! James was just pulling out on their line from the station ahead. Any minute there could be a crash. It's up to you now, Duck, cried the driver. Duck put every ounce of weight and steam against the cars. It's too late, Duck groaned and shut his eyes. He veered into a siding where a barber had set up shop. He was shaving a customer. The silly cars had knocked their conductor off his van and left him far behind after he had whistled a warning. But the cars didn't care. They were feeling very pleased with themselves. "Beg pardon, sir," gasped Duck. "Excuse my intrusion." "No, I won't," said the barber. "You frightened my customers. I'll teach you." And he lathered Duck's face all over. Poor Duck.
Whiff was there. Whiff was too tired to puff on. Thomas didn't see Whiff until it was too late.
Cinders and ashes!
He crashed and he bashed straight into the back of Whiff's rubbish train. The rubbish trucks clattered and battered right off the rails. Stinky rubbish and oily old engine parts toppled and tumbled over the tracks. Luckily, no one was hurt.
Meanwhile, Daisy, the diesel rail car, was on her way back to her shed. But then there was trouble.
Oh no! Look out!
With too many rocks and no brake van to help him slow down, Thomas couldn't stop.
Percy! Thomas! Look out! Look out! Sorry, Percy.
And then there was trouble.
Help! Help! Help!
What we need is speed and spin. Back up and watch the rescue.
So James backed up, Toby backed up, and Gordon waited. Then James pumped his pistons, his boiler bubbled, and his firebox fizzed.
Rescue engine to the ready!
James roared and raced down the track. He hit Gordon's buffer with a biff and a bash and a terrible smash. Gordon the Grand had toppled off the track into the muddy fen, and James the rescue engine had splished and sploshed into the mud after him.
Oh, the indignity.
Oh, my paintwork.
James. At the yards, Percy was collecting trucks. Then he heard Boulder.
Oh no, it's heading straight for me.
When the Fat Controller inspected the damage, he decided to close the mine. Then he looked at Boulder. "We should have left this part of the island alone," he said thoughtfully.
A goods train was waiting in the siding to let the flying kipper pass, and the driver and fireman were drinking cocoa in the brake van. "The kipper is due," said the guard. "Who cares?" said the fireman. "This is good cocoa." The driver got up. "Come on, fireman, back to our engine." They got out just in time. Henry's driver and fireman had jumped clear before the crash, but Henry lay dazed and surprised. The Fat Controller came to see him. "The signal was down, sir," said Henry. "Cheer up, Henry, it wasn't your fault. Ice and snow caused the accident. I'm sending you to Crewe, a fine place for sick engines. They'll give you a new shape and a larger firebox. You'll feel a different engine and won't need special coal anymore. Won't that be nice?" "Yes, sir," said Henry doubtfully.
Percy didn't know that earlier a leaky truck had spilled oil on the track. When he approached the chocolate factory, his driver applied the brakes, but Percy's wheels just skidded on the oily rails. "Oh no!" hooted Percy. Yuck! He groaned. "I've never been this dirty." He was covered from funnel to firebox in sticky, gooey chocolate.
Then there was trouble. As Gordon approached the new station, neither the driver nor fireman could apply his brakes. Something had jammed. The driver reduced steam, but Gordon was still going too fast.
Help me, please.
"Well, Gordon," said Sir Topham Hatt, "I knew you wanted a panoramic view, but this is not the way to achieve it."
"Yes, sir. Sorry, sir."
But Thomas didn't want to listen. He was too cross. He kept thinking about what was on the other side of the mountain. And he wasn't looking where he was going.
No! Thomas! Watch out!
I can't stop!
Luckily, nobody was hurt. One day, Henry was pulling a very important goods train on his way to the mainland.
Faster! Faster! Hurry up, Henry! We haven't got all day!
A faulty signal should have warned Henry there was another goods train stuck on the track up ahead. Then, everything happened at once. Poor Henry wouldn't be going to the mainland now. The load did hold, but not quite long enough.
Oh, crumbs. That's torn it. It's Rex.
I said it was easy. I said it was easy.
Then everything happened at once.
Rex! Rex! Watch out! Slow down!
Stop! Stop!
Oh, no!
Oh, no.
Ned was still dreaming of knocking buildings down and wasn't watching where he was going. "Look out!" cried his operator. But it was too late. The chimney rocked, the bricks crumbled, the workmen and the foreman took cover. Oliver and Thomas watched in amazement. "Oops," said Ned.
Rosie! Help! James! James! James!
Oh,
You okay, James?
I think so. How's my paint looking? I'm really in trouble now.
You can say.
Edward was right. Cars can run an engine right off the rails.
Oh!
Stay right there, James. I'll go and get help.